Good afternoon and welcome back to Sustaining Team Engagement. We're looking forward to spending the next 30 minutes with you. A couple of items. We have a poll that's on the screen, so if you take a moment and go ahead and fill in that poll, and then over in the chat window, we have a download for you. This is going to be a lot more, much more interactive session. So we're looking forward to working with you today. So please take a moment and download in the chat as well as continue on the poll. And as I start to see the numbers go up, I'll start to move forward. So the question today is, how isolated do you feel right now? So a good thing is people are feeling okay. Some are feeling a little isolated. We have about 19 folks checking in on them right now. So we'll give it a few more minutes before we get started. So if you're just joining us, once again, please go over to the chat window and download the Sustaining Engagement worksheet. You're going to be needing that today for our session. So it looks like most folks are doing okay. That's good. Some of you are feeling a little isolated, and some of your inner introvert is loving this session, seclusion. So a few more people are joining. So Vanessa, it says they're having a tough time seeing the download. Can you just repost that again? That would be great. They're not able to see it. So there it is from Vanessa Young. She just put it out there. So if you can grab onto that. We have about 25 people getting on the line right now. So take a minute, do the poll, and then grab that worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we'll let the poll run for a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. We have really hit a critical moment to keep us working, and it is really important that we sustain our team as to what is going to be that new norm. And good afternoon. My name is Barbara Crusay. I'm the Vice President of Organizational Change Management with AVAP Consulting. Today, my colleague, Dr. Shannon Sims, and I are going to take you through the next 30 minutes. We're glad that you were able to join us, and we look forward to spending those 30 minutes with you. So if we go to the next slide, and the poll is going to keep on running, but right now it looks like everybody's okay. I want to talk a little bit in regards to the guiding principles. When we think about change management, these are the guiding principles that really help us, and they will be the foundation that's going to drive us while we're sustaining change. The number one is change happens for a reason. And right now in these rapid changing times, it is so important that we help others understand what we're going to be doing during this time. And we also know that organizations don't change, but people change. So during this rapid time of change, we want to make sure that our people know what they're going to be how they're going to be changing. And then most important, we want to make sure that we have that framework. And change management is going to be so critical in what happens. So what I'd like you to do now is take that worksheet that you have, grab a pen, and we're going to spend some time taking a look at you and how you're feeling during this time. A lot of you are saying that you're feeling okay, but I'm sure that some of us are feeling a little isolated, and it also can depend on the day. So what I'd like to do is pull out that piece of paper that you have, and I want to share with you what we have heard about what employees are saying. So Shannon's going to stop the poll that we have here. It looks like 72% of you are doing okay. About 20% of you feel somewhat isolated, and about 8% are actually loving this inclusion. So great, thanks. So let's go to the next slide and start to talk about what's on people's mind. And I want to look at it from an employee side, and I also want to look at it from a leader side, because this is going to set our foundation as we start to talk through this team engagement. And then you're going to have the opportunity to take a look at yourself and at your team. So let's take a look at it from leading from the employee side. So we're going to pull that up here. a lot of our employees are starting to think, they're wondering, what is this new norm going to look like? And they're wondering how they're feeling a little concerned about their finances, and if they're going to have a job in this new norm, what's going to happen when they reopen? How's this staggered approach going to work for us? And at the same time, how am I going to make sure that I stay healthy? And how am I going to support my family, especially those that have the children and they're trying to get them through the school year? And how am I going to balance that? We talked a little bit about that last week. And then how am I going to make sure I have all of the basic needs that I have to live? So that's what we think about when we're employees. And I want to remind you, as leaders in an organization, you're also an employee. So sometimes you have that double duty of how you feel as an employee and then how you feel as a leader. So let's take a moment and take a look at the leader side and understand that leaders have a little bit different. They have everything that employees have in an organization, but they're also starting to think about, what about the performance of the company? And what is going to happen to the cash flow? And what is it going to cost to do our business when people are not working in the office and I don't get to see them and I have them working remote? And am I going to lose any of this productivity? And are my employees safe? So these are things that are really crucial to leaders. They're looking at both sides. They're looking at it from the employee side as well as the leader side. And if you pull out that worksheet that we gave to you, I want you to think, as you start to listen to Dr. Sims, and she's going to take you through 5 crucial areas of sustaining team engagement, I want you to think about yourself. And on the left-hand side of your worksheet, you're going to start to think about, what are you concerned about? And what's working for you and what's not working for you? And what does it look like for the future? And at the same time, I want you to think about your team. Some of you have been engaged with your team on a regular basis, but you might not know how they feel, or look at them as a group of individuals and start to think about these same questions. And then we'll discuss some of the next steps for those. So let's transition to those 5 areas that we're going to focus on. Dr. Sims is going to take you through each one of these in greater detail. And as she goes through the 5 areas to sustain team engagement, I want you to start to take some notes and start to think about, are there some actionable items here that I can take away with that are going to help me as I start to think about how to sustain my team? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sims, and she's going to take it from there. And then I'll come back and we will wrap that up at the end of 30 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara. I appreciate that. So excited just to spend a little bit of time with you this morning. And really, we wanted to start with this concept of emotional intelligence. Barbara shared our 4 guiding principles when it comes to managing the people side of change. We're all kind of living in this unprecedented change kind of environment. One of them is that organizations don't change, it's the people within them that change, and change is almost logical, right? Because it's people, and we are highly emotional. I don't know how you are feeling, but I can tell you that I am tired. I am bone tired. We were joking earlier about, I started crying over the fact that my Keurig broke, right? And I'm now I'm without coffee, which seems just so important. And then I watch the news and I see what the nurses are going through. And I'm like, suck it up, stop your belly aching. Other people have it worse than you, right? And then I feel super guilty. And then it's just this ping pong back and forth from an emotional perspective. It's sometimes almost invalidating that my reactions aren't important. But they are, because even though, we are seeing a lot of messaging right now around we're all in this together, the reality is we're all in the storm together. And I saw something on Facebook last week that really resonated with me. We may all be in the storm together, but we're each on a different boat. And maybe your boat's capsized, or maybe your boat's super big and you've got lots of people on there and you feel a lot of support. Maybe the boat's going under the water, right? But it really is, we're all living this experience with a lot of similarity, but a lot of differences as well. And I think emotional intelligence is really about taking the time to check in with yourself. Emotional intelligence is about the ability to recognize first and foremost your own emotions and reactions to things, and then to be able to recognize those emotions in others and kind of to discern between the different feelings and to be able to kind of put them in context and to label them appropriately. We all every single human has some level of emotional intelligence, and we use that to guide our thinking and our behavior. And we use it to manage and to adapt to what's going on around us. So I think it's important to recognize we all need that human kind of connection. And as you think about yourself first, and then to think about your individual team members and what they may be going through, it allows you to support your unique team members in their unique ways. So I just want to share a couple ways for you to think about tapping into your emotional and personal connection with your team. I think the first and most important thing is to show up, to lead by example and to be available. Last week for me was a week. Probably the best way that I can say it. And I feel very super fortunate that I have coworkers that I also call friends. Many of them are on the line here with me today. And last Friday morning, our Friday morning meeting was just quiet. Everyone was on mute. No one had their videos on. Even when everybody was talking, you could just tell that we were all very, very tired. And, you know, we've all worked in remote environments as consultants before, but it's feeling even more difficult. It's feeling like we're busier. It's feeling like we're moving from thing to thing, right? And one of my colleagues reminded me that it was important to take my own advice and, you know, to set some healthy boundaries for myself. And so I logged off at 2 p.m. and I didn't answer any emails after that, right? So, and our people need to see that we are going to follow our own advice and that we're not martyrs, that we recognize we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of them. I think it's okay in your meetings to use video features to increase interactivity. I think it's okay in some contexts maybe to let them know it's okay to turn the video camera off. That can be very distracting for folks, but it's also very connecting. So kind of pay attention to those things. I would recommend that you think about feedback. When you've got a group of people on a call, some people actually prefer to hear feedback one-on-one. Getting that public feedback sometimes can feel very threatening, and right now everything feels a little bit more uncertain, and so we have to think about that a little bit more, how we're going to provide the critical feedback that our team members have, but also to use good judgment on timing and how, right? So I would recommend kind of connecting with each of your team members and just check in with them on their preference. Create that time to do personal check-ins and don't just focus on the work. We got a couple folks on the line here. We've started a text trail, and I was joking that, you know, I would like to see us just use memes, just do an entire day, and all we share in the text trail is memes, because humor is really, really valuable and very important. Last thing I would recommend, right, is just to encourage your team members to connect and to collaborate and to do that outside of work. So that's really about emotional intelligence. So let's talk about team alignment. Teams right now, our teams, I think, they're groups of people that are working toward a common goal. And right now, your organization and your institution, maybe you're talking with a very consistent voice about the business. But if you're watching the media and you're watching the news, the media is not talking consistently with consistent messages. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're hearing conflicting information, and that conflicting information can negatively impact how people are performing and producing and kind of their productivity. So I think the best thing that you can do is really to help keep your team aligned and focused. And a couple ways to do about that is to think about the ABCs of change management. As a leader, the first is to be active and visible. The second is to really start to focus on building that team alignment. And the third is to keep your communication moving forward. Another thing you can look for is, we talked last week about 5 kind of areas of fear, 5 areas of kind of in a work engagement that could contribute to fear is to kind of remember and think back to those areas and to see if there are things you need to kind of help your team members with individually. The third area, kind of to this, and again, as Barbara mentioned, jot down the things that you think will help you. Please do not think that you have to do all of these things. If I were to do that, that would be completely overwhelming. Focus in on the things that resonate for you and your team and where you guys are right now. And hopefully you'll take away a tip or two that will help you as you're thinking. No more than 2 or 3. More than that, and it feels very overwhelming. One of the biggest things you can do for your team members right now is really to promote those boundaries. We were having a discussion in a forum here in our firm not too long ago about how when you don't have a commute and your commute is 30 seconds from your bedroom to your home office, or from your bedroom to your living room, those work-life boundaries really start to blur. And taking texts and continuing to work into the evening can kind of impede on our personal life. Some of you may be having to homeschool children, so you may need to take a break during the day to take care of different things. So as a leader, right, the key recommendation is really just to help your people understand where those guardrails are, right? Do you have super structured hours that you absolutely have to have them online, or is there, flexibility? Is there flexibility for them to run to do the grocery shopping in the middle of the day for a parent or a loved one, or to take a walk with their children, to get outside and kind of have a brain break? What are the expectations, right? Key thing that you can really do in promoting boundaries is to say things like, please take the weekend, right, to yourself. Please take a break. Helping, it's not as adults that we need permission per se, but sometimes just hearing our leader give voice helps us to understand what the expectations are, and that they really do understand that we're juggling a lot right now. So that's one of the biggest things that you can do, is really just to help promote those healthy boundaries for your team members. Breaks are important. Humor is important, right? Which is all about creativity. And I think it's important right now that we are creating those mental diversions and distractions, right? News and isolation, they really can be very, very draining. And so we need to come up with ways to keep the team fresh and engaged. I think you can help your team kind of see that bigger picture of maybe the team purpose, or kind of keeping the conversations positive. Last week we talked about how dopamine is the happy drug in our brain, and when you laugh, you release dopamine into your brain, and the more we have it, the more we want. So I think that's why I'm not doing any research, but I think that's why we're seeing a lot of memes that are flying around on Facebook right now. Because it helps us to be a little happier in this super uncertain time. So be creative. Be creative with how you engage your team. Some ideas that we have talked about: have a weekly coffee break, maybe have a virtual happy hour. You can use those video conferencing features for fun. Some of the tools, they have things like you can send people a cup of coffee, you can send an emoji, you can use thumbs up, hand clapping, right? You can use whiteboards. There's all kinds of things that you can do there. Consider team building activities. You can record a virtual birthday greeting for a team member. My team did that a couple weeks ago, and it was really unexpected and probably one of the best birthday gifts I've ever received. And conversely, about a week later, we hosted a surprise birthday party for Barbary. So Barbary and I both got to experience virtual team birthday celebrations. One of our team members has started the Netflix show of the week, and I got to tell you, it should be a lot easier than book club, though I'm even finding it hard to kind of have an attention span more than 20 minutes at this time. But there are things that you can do that are non-work related. There's a great tool out there. I will find it and I will send it to you guys, but you can do trivia. It's a very nominal cost, and you can do trivia, and you can compete, and you just compete via your smartphone. There are other tools, bingo. One of my niece, her job every Friday, they're doing team trivia. So they all kind of share information about each other, and then they have this team trivia competition to get to know each other. So you can also have others come up with the ideas, right? The more minds that are on it, the more ideas you're going to get, and letting other people lead it. It can be a very organic kind of activity, and it'll get legs of its own. Don't feel like you have to be the one to come up with all the creative ideas. I'm not the most creative person. Getting other people to help with that is always important. I think the last area that I just wanted to kind of focus on is keeping an eye on the future, right? And I think over the coming days for many of the states, depending on where you are in the process, in the state of Ohio right now, we know that our stay-at-home mandate is going to lift starting next Friday, the 1st. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we have to start looking with an eye on the future. What is really going to be happening? What's that new normal going to start to look like? We're not going back to the old normal. It's going to be something new, and something new that hasn't yet been defined. And so as you start to think about that, they're very practical, tangible things that you can start to do. You can actually kind of solicit feedback from your team members on what has worked and what hasn't worked, right? And capture what you've learned, not after, make sure you capture it, capture what you learn. I would recommend that you just even take the time to reflect on your own leadership style. What do you feel has worked? What has felt comfortable? What has stretched you outside of your comfort zone? What do you want to take forward into the new normal? What maybe did you not do so well, and just give your permission to put it in its place and set it aside, and not to beat yourself up over it? A couple weeks ago, I felt like in a meeting that I might have been a little too harsh. My face sometimes, I think my face is showing that I'm empathetic, and then I realize actually my face looks like I'm really angry when I'm trying to be thoughtful. And I kind of beat myself up over the weekend as to whether I needed to go back and apologize to somebody over an interaction. It's okay, right? We make mistakes. Give yourself permission to put it aside. Keep what's working. Get rid of what doesn't. Right. And then I think it's super important to just kind of try to figure out what your organization is going to be doing as you start to return to work. Different industries are having different challenges right now. Different states, maybe your organization is spread across multiple states, and your team members are spread across multiple states. I'm in Ohio. I've got a team in Georgia. Right now, their governor just kind of released everything, and everybody's kind of going back to the way it was. In the state of Ohio, we're being told we've got an 18-month, right, back to normal. So very different reactions depending on where you are, and organizations have to take different steps to really think about those nuances. And so that's something that you can do, is to really start to find out what is your organization going to be doing as you return to normal. And so to help you kind of get started focusing in on this, I do want to take just a quick second. You can pull out your smartphone and go to your web browser and type in menti.com, and you can enter the number at the top of the screen here, 319632. And I'm just curious to find out from you, as you are putting your eye on the future, what are the changes that you've already are starting to foresee that you're going to have to adapt to for your new normal? Are there things like product or service shifts? Do you anticipate you're going to have workforce staffing changes? Was talking with in the healthcare environment. Some of the hospitals are anticipating that, once we get through this, that many more are going to start looking at moving their back office operations to ERP, so that if we're in another situation like this, they don't have to cross into the hospital to do their work. In some states, they're having to cross picket lines to come into work. In higher education, I see remote training is kind of coming up here. Faculty who are used to working in a brick and mortar environment maybe have to start doing more virtual, not online, right? We're not talking about online college, but maybe more virtual work. right? This continuation of remote meetings, right? Wearing a mask in public, right? Some states that you may have to actually wear a mask in public. And if you're working in public and you're in the office with your coworkers and you all have to wear masks, that's going to feel very different. Maybe projects are going to be delayed, right? Maybe there's staffing changes, or maybe people have realized that this remote work really works and they're going to want to continue to work from home. That has a significant implication for, do you still need the facilities that you need? Do we need to invest in a more robust infrastructure for these types of activities? Maybe our government clients, right? If you're in a consulting environment, maybe our government clients will be more agile with accepting and adopting telework and remote delivery. So we're going to leave this open. If you have more ideas, please by all means share them. But it gets us to start thinking about and preparing for our session next week. So I'm going to turn it back over to Barbara just to close us out.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. So this is all great information. So take the time to work through that worksheet. I think you're going to find it very valuable in giving you a better understanding and having a level set of how you feel versus how your team feels. It's going to give you some insight. And thinking about going back to the new normal. Last week we talked about how to lead virtually. This week we talked about sustaining team engagement. And next week we're really going to bring it all together and really have you start to work through what does that back to the new normal look like, and how are you going to take that, and when your company starts to open up, how are you going to apply that? So Dr. Sims and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Next Thursday at the same time. And if you have any other colleagues you'd like to invite, we would sure enjoy to have them. And I wish you stay happy, stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again.